In our crazy, noisy daily lives, it's so easy to think of silence as, well, just an absence of sound, right? But what if it's something more? What if it's the very language of existence itself? Today, we're going to dive into the teachings of the mystic Osho to understand exactly what he meant by that.
So right off the bat, Osho hits us with this beautiful paradox. He's basically saying, hey, the deepest truths, you can't really put them into words. Words can only ever point the way. The actual experience, the truth itself, well, that happens in the space between the words, in the quiet.
So why is this idea so important? Well, according to Osho, it's because we're living in a world that is completely, utterly drowning in noise. And the crazy part is, most of us don't even realize it. And look, he's not just talking about traffic or loud music here. He's pointing to the noise that comes from literally everywhere. The constant pressure from the marketplace, the endless arguments of politics, even the chatter within our own families. But the loudest, most relentless noise of all? Yeah, it's that radio station that's always playing inside our own heads.
And all this noise, it has a huge consequence. Osho uses this incredible metaphor. He says, existence doesn't shout at you. It whispers. It shows up softly, like a dewdrop falling from a leaf. But if our minds are filled with the roar of all that inner traffic, we're going to miss it every single time.
Okay, so if noise is the problem, then silence, or Maun as it's called in Sanskrit, is the answer. But here's the twist. It's not an empty silence. For Osho, silence is a presence. It's a form of communication that's way more fundamental than any language we could ever speak.
And Osho really lays out the difference here, and it's pretty stark. He says, words are like walls. They define things, they separate us, they limit us. But silence? Silence is the bridge that connects us to our true selves and really to everything. Words are just noise, silence is music. Words keep us stuck out here in the world of constant doing, while silence brings us home to the inner world of just being.
So the big question is, how do we get to this inner silence? Now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds difficult. But what's amazing is that Osho's method is surprisingly simple. It requires zero struggle. In fact, struggling is the one thing we absolutely have to stop doing. The whole thing hinges on this one core technique called sakshi, which basically means the witness. Now, this is not about forcing your thoughts to stop. That's impossible, and it's a losing game. It's about becoming a detached observer. You just sit back and watch whatever comes up, thoughts, feelings, memories, without judging them, without getting tangled up in them, and for sure without trying to push them away.
Okay, so how does it actually work? It's as simple as this. 1, thoughts are going to show up. Just let them. 2, don't pick a fight with them. And 3, just watch them drift on by. Osho puts it perfectly. You are not the clouds, you are the vast, open sky. And the sky is never disturbed by the clouds, is it? They just appear, and then they disappear.
And this right here is the absolute key. The second you start fighting a thought, yelling at yourself, I shouldn't be thinking this, bam, you've just given it a shot of energy. You create more conflict, more noise. The struggle becomes the noise. But when you just watch, the thoughts, they lose their power over you. You win, not by fighting harder, but by simply becoming a silent witness.
Osho gives us another fantastic way to think about this. Imagine your mind is a pond, and the water is all muddy. Now, if you jump in and start thrashing around, trying to clear it up, what happens? You just make it murkier. But if you just sit quietly by the edge and do nothing, the mud slowly settles all by itself, and the water becomes crystal clear. Our minds are exactly the same. We just have to stop thrashing. Okay, so witnessing your thoughts, that's step 1, and it's huge. But Osho doesn't stop there. He takes us way deeper, right to the very root of all the noise we experience inside. So what is it? I mean, really, what is that one single seed where all these thousands of chaotic, noisy thoughts and feelings actually come from?
The answer is just one little word. I. The ego, that constant sense of me that's always got something to say. It's always commenting, judging, worrying. I like this. I don't like that. What's going to happen to me? This I is the narrator of the whole noisy show, the seed of the entire mess.
So this is a really crucial point. You can get your thoughts to quiet down for a little bit, sure,
But if the thinker, that sense of I, is still there, it's just going to cook up new thoughts. So the ultimate goal isn't just to find a gap between your thoughts, it's to realize that the thinker, who claims them, isn't even real. It's about the disappearance of the thinker itself.
This is such a beautiful and maybe a little scary idea. You don't achieve silence like it's some trophy you can win. You just surrender to it. It's like a river that travels its whole life struggling to get to the ocean. And what's the final step? It just lets go and merges. The river as a separate thing is gone, but in disappearing, it becomes the whole vast ocean.
So what happens when this I finally dissolves, when we merge with that inner silence? Well, this is where Osho says the real treasures of life are found. And they're not things you gain. They're things that were there all along, just buried under all the noise.
When the chatter of the ego finally goes quiet, what's left is bliss, ananda. And it's not the same as happiness, which depends on what's happening outside. This is a deep, unconditional joy that is just your true nature. Love stops being this transactional thing. I'll love you if you love me. And it just becomes your natural state. And compassion, it just flows out of you effortlessly, because you start to see yourself in everyone. You can really think of the whole process like a plant growing. Silence is the seed that you plant and nurture. From that little seed, the beautiful flower of bliss naturally blossoms. And from that flower, the fragrance of love and compassion just spreads out into the world, all without you having to do a single thing.
And this distinction is so simple, but it's incredibly profound. Happiness is external. It comes and goes with whatever is happening in your life. But bliss is internal. It's that deep peace that's still there when everything else is stripped away. It doesn't depend on anything, because it is you, underneath all that noise.
And this all leads to the final, beautiful realization. The whole long journey, the search for truth, for peace, for God, it all ends when you discover that you were never actually separate from it. You were the treasure you were looking for the whole time. The journey was just about clearing away the noise so you could finally hear the silence of your own being. So here's the thought. What if the home we're all searching for isn't a place out there to find, but just a quiet inside of us that we need to remember?